Coming up this week on the Digital Hive Talk Show 910. Richard's here. We've got lots to talk about. We're talking about smart home again, people pulling services, Hive, some of their devices going obsolete. We're talking about what that means. We've got new builds of Windows 11 to talk about, changes of support for Windows 11 processors. We'll be talking about that. Bugs in the new dev channel build. We'll do a real-time check to see whether my build has got this issue. Talking about my Solina String Ensemble as well, which is really interesting, and lots more. So let's get straight to Richard. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Okay, good. And you got straight into Teams. No issues at all tonight. That's the first, isn't it?
It's a first. It worked perfectly for the first time in I think ever, actually. Normally it takes me 3 goes to get in, but this time straight in. So although the interface does look a bit different, so maybe there's been a change somewhere. I don't know, but it's works well on my browser.
Oh, you're using the browser one. Yeah, I'm using the new the preview version, which seems okay now, apart from the sharing, which doesn't have the sharing option like the other one did. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, good to have you here. Unfortunately, though, Gary tonight he's got children issues to sort out. So good luck with him on that one. I'd rather be doing a podcast. It's a lot easier, having done that myself over the time.
Yes, exactly. Always trying to think. Goodness me, it's like small children are. It's actually, I think, it kind of makes it easy. It makes making smart home devices look easy. Trying to make small children do what you want them to do.
Yes, definitely does. So we have got quite a few interesting things I want to talk about today. We did get a couple of new builds. There's some change in support potentially for Windows 11. I've got some info on the ARM devices for Surface, and we've got some more smart home issues. Oh, and I've got something to show off as well. So let's talk about the smart home. We talk about smart home, the risk of smart home, of things being pulled, but there's something else happening, isn't it?
Well, yes. I mean, I guess it's finally happened because this is the British Gas Hive smart home devices, and I mean they warned last year that this
around here.
Well, I mean, they warned last year that this was coming, and sure enough, they have begun to turn things off now. I think it's the security cameras that have been turned off.
Yes.
As of this month, and
so that's in the drawer somewhere. To got rid of it.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's a shame because they're effectively being bricked. Unless you've managed to sort yourself out a alternative software solution, and I'm aware of some hacks out there. These devices are effectively being bricked, and they weren't that old. They're only a few years old, some of them. But I think the initial one is, I think it's the cameras, isn't it? That they're going, and also the hub as well is going to go too. I mean, I think it's a real shame, and I think it's also a bit of a worry. It's a shame Gary isn't on tonight because I think it's the thing that whenever you buy a smart home device, you need to really consider this stuff now, because these things, they weren't cheap, and when you buy an appliance, you expect it to last for more than a few years, and these things there's nothing physically wrong with them. They're just being turned off because British Gas or Hive or whoever has decided they no longer wish to support them for whatever reason. I presume it's down to economics and costs, and they're basically being turned off. I mean, I think it's security cameras, isn't it? Is it the burglar alarms too?
I think, and water sensors. I think
water sensors. So the leak detectors are going to go as well. And yeah, it's going to make you think. If you want to buy a smart home device, you have to really consider what kind of ecosystem you're buying into. Is it an open ecosystem that will keep on running? Because this is a clear demonstration. If you do opt for a closed ecosystem, the plug could be pulled without warning. I mean, for example, I'm still using the cameras I got years ago. I can't remember. Not Arlos. What are they called? The cameras I've got.
The Blink ones. You do have some
Blink ones, yeah, which are still running fine. But again, I'm aware of the fact they do depend on Amazon services, which you would hope will still be around. They've been going for probably 4 or 5, maybe longer, 6 years, with no problems at all. But equally, I'm aware of the fact that it is a closed ecosystem, and if the company behind decides to stop support them, they would also be bricked. So I think you need to be very careful when you do go down the smart home route, particularly with cameras, or I mean, in this case, it's a burglar alarms as well. The fact that these things are security cameras, they're used as burglar alarms. They're things that that they're there for your home security and for your safety. So having them unexpectedly, okay, we're given a year's notice, but they're still being the plug is still being pulled, and you're going to have to buy new hardware if you want to keep using that service. So so it's a kind of sad week really to see. I mean, I was kind of hoping they'd back away from this, or there'd be some very clear public alternative, but it doesn't seem to have happened. And so as of this month, a bunch of Hive stuff is being turned off.
Yeah, and we've seen it with the D-Link smart plugs that were working quite happily. With mine were working fine. With Hive Arlo backed off on it a lot, didn't they, after the issues that they had? But we've seen. I was looking. Actually, I think my sensor's around here somewhere. I've got a Hive motion sensor. I don't think that's on the list, but I can't imagine that's being long for being available. And I was actually going to use that to trigger my Q lights. I wanted to use Amazon to create a routine, but I couldn't see that on the Amazon app. So I got a feeling they've already removed some functionality off it or something like that as well. So it's obsolescence is a real issue, I think, for smart homes, and one that I don't think anyone's going to address.
Well, exactly. And again, this is where I'd look to Gary's examples of smart home devices that are independent of vendors and certain services, because again, the tragedy here is there's nothing wrong with this hardware. That the hardware is fine. It's the fact that the back end service is being switched off, and there's no way of connecting the hardware to other services, which I just think is it's a real shame. I think, particularly since they're I believe they're pivoting towards things like heat pumps and electric car chargers now, ostensibly as a bit of a it's great, fight climate change, whatever else, and yet they're going to create all this landfill. So anyway, I'm too cynical.
But then I do worry about things like I've got the smart heating. Now that's not, and if that gets shut down, that service, I can't. That's wired in, isn't it? That's hardwired in your house. You need someone to come and fit a new one. I suppose it's a bit easier because kind of the part of the back end has been done, so those wires now come into a box in the kitchen. So I could probably figure it out. If you've got a Nest maybe or something like that, it's probably you could install it yourself. But even so, it's a lot of inconvenience. So whereas my old thermostat in this house was here 20 years, I don't think the Hive system will be here in another 20 years. I'd be impressed if it gets another 5.
I mean, this is where it's important to differentiate between, consumer expectations of what an appliance actually is, because consumers expect that a thermostat will work really forever until you choose to change it. Whereas what we seem to be seeing here is what a consumer might assume is an appliance is actually being treated as a device that could be replaced in 4 years or 5 years time, which is not what people are used to accepting as an appliance. So I think it's a sad month really to sort of see these things being turned off, because it is, I think, a very high profile reminder, certainly here in the UK, that you need to think very carefully about what you select for your smart home devices, because the support could get pulled.
Yeah, and it's not like you're dealing with a little company. British Gas, Centrica it's not a small little insignificant company. And Arlo used to be Netgear. These aren't little companies, and we've seen Google do it. And we've seen them all do it, haven't we? So.
Absolutely. And when they announced it, then they were kind of said, we're going to give you three years notice. Things will some things will disappear on August the 1st, 2025, and what have you. But still, 3 years. It's not a long time for an appliance. That's
I think that's the key. Yeah.
What I think these companies need to understand is people have different expectations. It's not like a phone. It's not like a device or a tablet. These are actual appliances that people expect to last longer. Your plug sockets, your smart plugs and things shouldn't just be turned off in this way. So I mean, I do wonder perhaps if there should be some kind of regulation around them, so companies simply can't do this. Because if you bought it, it just seems very unfair. You're now going to have to buy another device to replace a perfectly functioning device. It's just not being supported anymore.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it would be if your car stopped being supported after 12 months or something, yeah. It is an interesting dilemma between maintaining services and standalone, and like you said, the expectations. But
absolutely, yeah. And of course, one must also accept that some smart devices do have to be bricked because they, you can't get security updates for them anymore. I mean, an awful lot of are really fully functional mini computers lurking within these things, and of course, there are security issues and they need to be patched, and updates will stop flowing at some point. But equally, it should be possible to keep those devices updated and patched in the same way that, I mean, you look at, say, how long Raspberry Pis get supported for when they go on for 10 years plus, and you would expect similar really for any appliance. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and talking things about support being pulled, it's not just Microsoft seem to have an issue with the same thing for Windows 11 processors, though, don't they?
Yeah, this is almost like, because didn't last week I have a whinge about that?
Yes,
about if
they thought they might do the opposite.
Do the opposite, and it's like, no, we shan't. We're going to pull more support. I kind of hope this is a mistake, because it's really odd what's happened. Is this the Intel Xeon processors that have been yanked from the list of supported
that's
Windows 11
right,
CPUs? Yeah. So it's the 8th gen Intel CPUs which I thought were going to be supported. So quite a while Microsoft's pulled support for Xeons, and they're not the kind of processors you would normally have in your desktops, are they? They're kind of server class chips, these things. So but yes, so it's there's a big long list. I think it was Neowin that first spotted it. And yeah, it's the putting of support for a whole bunch of Intel Xeon chips for Windows 11. My thinking is this has got to be a mistake. I don't understand why, because I simply can't understand why they're doing this. Because these are 8th gen chips. They've said 8th gen chips supported, so maybe there's been a problem with the Excel spreadsheet and it's gone off the edge. I just don't know why they would do it. I mean, I don't think. I mean, has Microsoft made any comment about this yet?
No, they haven't. No.
Yeah, so I do wonder if maybe there's been a mistake made somewhere. But if so, to be fair, it's unlikely to affect many people, because this is, these are mainly server class chips. So that the Xeons aren't normally found in desktops. So it shouldn't really affect many people. But I would be interested to know why they've chosen. What is it about these chips that has meant that they've removed them from the hardware compatibility list, even though they're 8th gen Intel CPUs? I kind of think this might be a mistake, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a new operating system. It's these have been installed and people running Windows 11 on it for some time, and
yeah,
of course, even if they're not supported, it doesn't mean to say Windows 11 will stop working. It just means when you get 23 or 24 H1, whoever they decide to call it, you can't install the upgrade. It just comes up and says this version is not compatible. So you get the patches, but you won't get the
exactly
the 6 monthly or the annual updates.
Exactly. So the version of Windows 11 you're using will keep getting patches up until it runs out. Although they do run out quite quickly when Windows 11 now. But yes, you won't be able to install any new major updates. So as you say, the 2023 H2 will not be for you if this is the case and you're running one of these affected Intel Xeon chips. But again, I can't imagine. I mean, maybe workstations might be using them, perhaps, or maybe some embedded systems. I just cannot imagine an end user actually being affected, because servers aren't going to be running Windows 11 anyway. So it's really odd. Although, I mean, have these also been pulled from the list for the from Windows Server itself?
Actually, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure they have, because the Windows Server 2019, isn't it? 2019 is the. Or is that 20? No, it's Windows Server 2021 is Windows 11, isn't it? So I'm not sure.
It's quite confusing the Windows server stuff, because obviously Microsoft would very much like you to be running your server class workloads on Azure, not on on-premise Windows Server. So they do seem to almost make Windows Server quite hard to work out now, whereas before, I mean, I guess you remember as well, it was little more than the Windows workstation with a little flick to say, actually, no, this is now the server version. It's all the same though, whereas now they're quite different beasts.
Yeah, and under the core, it's still the same, I think. But it just gets harder to see. I did actually read a couple of people reporting that some of the workarounds to install Windows 11 on unsupported ones, like swapping out the WIM file, is it install.wim?
Right.
I think doesn't work on the new Canary builds.
Oh, really? So they are really tightening things up.
Yeah. Now I'm not quite sure why they're doing that. I mean, I would have thought that if people are going, yes, I understand they don't want to support all versions, but if you're savvy enough to be able to get it working, then you kind of think, oh, we'll just leave you alone, because if you're going to all those lengths, maybe unscrupulous PC sellers, maybe, I don't know.
It could be. I suspect it's more likely that obviously these were unsupported ways of making it work. At some point, they're not going to stop working. It's as simple as that. Microsoft will make a change that would unintentionally just stop these things working. I doubt it's anything conspiratorial, because I suspect it's such a small number of users that are doing it. I doubt Microsoft really cares, to be honest. And at least doesn't care enough to devote effort and resource to deliberately stopping these the systems will these things from working. I suspect it's probably just an accident, and because you're using an unsupported way of making Windows 11 work, it stopped working. That would be my take on that, but obviously Microsoft have said nothing, have they? So we just don't know for sure.
And of course, it could be they're getting Windows 12 ready with new CPU requirements, and this is all in preparation for that.
I really hope they aren't. I mean, it's caused so many problems in hacking out all the CPU support for Windows 11. If they do it again with Windows 12, I just think it would be a level of insanity that I think I can't believe they do it, because I mean, enterprises are unhappy enough about what's happened with with the move to Windows 11, because, as you said, PC makers would love to sell more machines, but in the current economic climate, PC sales are not going well anymore. Unfortunately, we've had the big surge during the lockdown period, and now PC sales are not as wonderful as it used to be, sadly. And I don't think enough PCs capable of running Windows 11 have been sold. So, I mean, I do wonder if we're going to get to the point, as you've said, where they'll blink regarding Windows 10 support and keep it going for another year or so.
Yeah, that's the most I think they would do, unless they launch a new like Windows 12 and say, look over here, Windows 12. Don't worry about your Windows 10 stuff. Just look over here at Windows 12.
I expect it'll be some major customer will basically turn around and say to them, we can't move to Windows 11, and if you make us do this, we're going to buy Macs, or we're going to buy Androids, or we're going to buy Chromebooks or whatever. And the Microsoft say, oh, wait, just keep it going for 1 more year then, because I can just see that happening behind the scenes.
I think you're right. I mentioned about the builds. We did get a Canary build last week. Actually, we got the blog post of it, which they don't always do, but we got a Canary build. And actually, most of the features we get in this are actually from the dev channel again, which is quite funny, really. So we got 25921, which has HDR backgrounds. I've never heard of these JXR files until a couple of weeks ago. But these are these high-res files, aren't they? HDR files you can now have as your background if your display supports it. My Surface Surface Geo doesn't support it. I think it supports HDR video, but not desktop thumbnails or desktop images. So that didn't work. Here's one that you'll like as well. Cortana can be uninstalled with this build.
Yeah, bye Cortana. Bye.
It's really weird, isn't it? How they had the whole AI assistant thing well before a long time ago, and rather than just morphing changing the back end for to use Bing, they just killed the whole front end off completely. So yeah, so we've got Bing Chat instead. But anyway, oh, and the other thing is this as well is chat is now called Microsoft Teams Free, and it's pinned, but you can unpin it.
Yeah, it's all very strange. Although,
yeah.
This is a bug bash build, isn't it? Didn't they accidentally leak a tool to allow you to do the A/B testing stuff?
Yes, they did. Yeah, and they've withdrawn that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is this was the thing that made me laugh the most. But obviously, it's it's quite a fun build. It's build what number is it? It's build 2259221. But yeah, they accidentally leaked as part of a quest. They leaked this thing called stage.
Yeah.
The bits and pieces and override A/B testing, which is a bit oops. So it's almost like saying, yeah, these things really are here. We're just choosing not to
tell you about them.
But I think now this tool is out in the wild. I think insiders who are savvy enough to obviously run the Canary build are going, hey, great, we can now have our tool, have all the toys if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you could do it for the Vive tool already, but yeah, it is the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
But an official one.
Exactly.
One that they've pulled, yeah.
I mean, Vive tool or Mac 2, great, they will do it, but this is Microsoft's official method for basically turning on A/B stuff, which is, I mean, I do find the A/B testing quite irritating because I know Microsoft are very keen that people should try out Windows in different incarnations, but you think to yourself, I'm an insider, I want all the toys now. I'm here to test stuff and play with stuff. Give me all the toys. And they're choosing not to. So this is I did find this quite funny that it's made its way out, and yeah, sadly the cat is very much out of the bag.
Yeah. On the other build we got last week, the dev channel build was 23516. The same features are on that, like the HDR backgrounds were on this, but the casting well, it said casting improvements, but when I went through it, and actually it's really the availability of the casting feature that worked better, so it wasn't really that much different, but yeah, you can set it up a bit easier now. And presence improvement as well. If you've got a presence sensor, it can tell if you're looking at the screen now, so it can dim the screen when you're not looking at it, which I suppose saves you a bit of battery.
I'd say creepy personally.
Yeah, and what does it do when you're not looking? That's what I want to know now. It starts flashing some little messages at you and pulling faces at you. As soon as you turn around, they're gone again. So Windows knows you're watching now. Pay attention. It knows only if people get reports from Teams calls if you, your employees weren't looking at the screen while you were presenting. I'm sure that's some data that, in fact, talking data, just a quick sidetrack. Do you see that Zoom was changed their terms and conditions so that they can give all their data to AI models and things so that they can do things with your data?
Oh yeah, that's slightly DS this. Although on that note, did you also see the OpenAI? Who obviously they're the outfit that Microsoft have invested substantially in, and you'll find the tech behind Copilot and what have you. They're now going to use their own in-house bot for crawling. So obviously when they crawl the net to bring information into their training sets, they now have their own in-house bot called a GPT bot, which you can, if you wish, use robots.txt that your website, whatever robots so you can use that to stop it. Right.
Yeah, that's good. That's supposed to be that's like say blocking the Google bot, isn't it? Yeah, you don't have my info. But then if you're out, if your objective is to be out there to be discovered, then you're not going to get discovered, are you? But I suppose you can maybe hide some bits that are proprietary or something like that.
Or what you could do is if you're feeling particularly mean and nasty, you can basically direct it to page after page of misinformation, and then that will get sucked into the AI models. I'm sure nobody would dream of doing it. Yes, that's another AI thing. But yes, you just say Zoom is going to be pulling the stuff to train its models with. I have to say, I mean, that's a bit disturbing, but I mean, it's not uncommon practice, I guess, is it?
No, I'm sure it's not. No, there's quite a few people spotted that in the updated terms and conditions, but I suppose their staff, for the staff, it's the least of worries, isn't it? Because they're all being forced back to the office.
They are, yes, and and isn't it Google as well who are offering the staff? Is it $99 if they'd like to sleep in the office? No, the staff must pay $99 per night to sleep in the office, or have accommodation on campus or nearby. So it's let's get back to the office, people.
Yes. Yeah, I think Zoom of all people though should be the one.
Yes,
It's a bit of a bad message to go out, isn't it?
It's not great, is it? So you're saying you can't work remotely because the experience is bad from the company. That okay, fine. Moving on.
Yeah, they're another company I think that did well during the pandemic, and then of course things settle, then the pressure on the stocks changes.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's quite surprising to see how fast things have changed.
Peloton.
Well, yeah, correctly. I mean, I'm obviously not going to say the pandemic is over, because I think you'd be foolish if you thought things were over. But certainly the lockdown experience has ended in the UK.
For now, whether we're getting it back or not, who knows? Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. It wasn't a fun time. Well, that said, I mean, because I do a lot of my calls from my shed at the end of my garden. I've often said, look, you can see behind me the fruits of my lockdown labours. Basically, lots and lots of space Lego. So much space Lego. That's what I did. That's what I did during lockdown. That and make cocktails. Those are two things I did, and put on lots of weight. So, which I think is quite common. So.
I think a lot of people have that experience.
But yes, I was going to say in that dev channel build 23516, there has been a weird bug in, isn't there? The missing taskbar bar bug.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that before, but when I was running it, and I think I haven't got it on my machine at the moment with the virtual machine, but I didn't get any issues with it. But I normally work on it for a couple of hours, do the build, do the video, and then go off to the next thing. So I don't spend like hours on these builds at the moment.
Yeah, it is a weird one. I mean, I've not seen it on mine, but I have. I've seen videos of it from other people where basically, you install the build, all seems fine, and then on boot the taskbar just doesn't appear, disappears, and the advice from Microsoft's been, oh, okay, well, maybe leave it for a few minutes, and then it might pop up by itself. Perhaps do a reboot, might come back. Otherwise, you have to roll back. So
was this the dev build?
This is dev build, 23516. So it's not in Canary, it's not in beta, it's in dev. This bug, and again, my point would be these are insider builds, so things are going to go wrong. You shouldn't get too touchy if things go wrong. What I'm interested in is Microsoft don't seem to be able to reproduce it, and they're finding it inconsistent. They can't work out what's happened. They know something has happened, but they can't seem to fix it. And you would think, well, okay, just look and see what's different in this build from the previous build. But I guess it's just so colossal. It's hard to work out which change has caused this particular problem.
Yeah,
because there were some taskbar tweaks in 23516, weren't there? What did they do? I think there's a counter. They've put more stuff in the system tray. Again, TeamSync is now pinned. So I wonder if it's that.
I'm going to fire my. Oh well, let me share my screen because I've just fired my build up and look. Spot the missing thing.
It's gone.
There's no taskbar. Yeah.
Live and direct the task. So what happens if you control delete from here?
Well, you can't really. It's a virtual machine, isn't it? So I can send it. Let's send the control delete. I can go to Task Manager. And of course, but what I could probably find is the Explorer task, or I'll probably even just run it.
Just run the shell.
Well, let's just see if there is the Explorer task. Maybe if I restart it, it will come back.
No, I suspect people have tried all these things already.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So there we go. You've now you appear to. But apparently, if you leave it for
Oh,
5
there
or
you go.
it's back.
Yeah,
Back.
so I ran the Explorer manually from the task manager. So that's what brought that back. So that was my fix. Just run explorer.exe.
Yeah. So that is, I think, the issue with this current build.
Yeah.
Again, my point would be these are insider builds. Things are going to go wrong. So it's kind of, in a way, good to see it going wrong, because it means things are changing. That's good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I quite like the updated File Explorer. Actually, it looks like the old one now. It does, doesn't it? Because that was up here. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, that is strange.
I wonder if I wonder if it's loaded the old one. Although it's got the details pane, the modern details pane on there. So and the gallery.
What does the watermark say?
Yeah, so you can see that it's just 23516.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm sure maybe we've had that many builds. It could be any, but I'm sure we had the modern build. I think that might be on the beta channel though, where it's up here. But anyway, yeah, like you said, it goes to show though, sometimes we think, oh, we're boring these builds, nothing's changing, and of course underneath there's a massive amount of changes that can crash the launch of the taskbar. So yeah, these things can happen. Yeah, well, I'm glad you told me about that, and at least I can see that. But yeah, so that'll be in the known issues for next week's build. I'm sure they'll probably fix that. But they may wait to fix that before actually releasing a build, so they may not even release a build this week while they sort that out. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
at least we've got a live demo of it.
Yeah, exactly. Inconsistent, and you've now come up with another solution to it, which is basically environmentally explore manually. Although, it may just have been popping back anyway. Who knows?
Yeah. As soon as I ran that, it did fire back up. Well, we can do a live. We can restart the machine while we're talking about other things. We'll give it a test. So something that you've been doing, you've done a lot of testing with ARM devices, or the ARM Windows. You've got your dev box, and you doubted Microsoft's commitment to that a few times, haven't you?
I have doubted their commitment to it, because it's not as good as it should be, but it sounds from what you're saying that things are moving.
Well, no, actually, no, things aren't moving, because I was holding out for a.
I was hopeful then.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. My taskbar has worked this time after this reboot. I was holding out for an ARM-based Surface Go to replace my aging original Surface Go, which is definitely due for a new device. I was hoping there'd be an ARM-based one, but I'm seeing now from a couple of sources, I think Zach Bowden and some others are all saying that the plans for an ARM-based Surface Go have been shelved, or certainly not shelved, but delayed. It won't be this year. I was expecting, I think the general hope was there would be one this year. So with there'll be a Surface event this year, and where they're going to launch updated Surface Go, and there'll be an updated Intel version, but not an ARM-based version, which is what I was really holding out for.
This does not. I mean, I was hoping you're going to give me some good news there, because I kind of heard similar. I thought, oh, perhaps Ian's got a source that's going to reveal it's all rosy. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me, because I mean, looking at the ARM dev kit here, it's clearly not gone well. It's not a great machine, unfortunately, and I can imagine Microsoft are just being quite pragmatic, and the longer they fiddle around with these, the better the Intel chips get. So eventually, you think, well, honestly, what is the point as far as they're concerned? Because Apple are romping away with the M series chips, and they're working very well on Apple hardware. Most of the useful stuff on Microsoft hardware still needs Intel emulation to run, and of course, as soon as you use that Intel emulation on an ARM chip, it's always slower, and you lose all the benefits of running ARMs. You lose a power efficiency, you lose everything really. So, yeah, I'm not surprised, and I would not be surprised if Microsoft decides to back away from that in the end user desktop space. I still think there's great potential in data centers, and certainly I've seen some kind of companies like HPE rolling out great fleets of ARM-based machines in DCs. But I do wonder if the Windows on ARM thing, if the clock is now very much ticking on that.
Yeah, I think you could be right.
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, they've not talked about it. They don't even mention it at the moment, and it's always a bad sign when Microsoft stop talking about things. Ask Media Center or Home Server or Zoom or Windows Phone users or HoloLens. Things don't go well when they stop talking about it, and I think that's one of the issue. But there isn't to say that there won't be one next year, but I think there was plans for one this year, and now they're all, so that's changed. So whether that's we're going to leave it another year because it's not ready, or that's it's just not worth bothering with device. I mean, like you said, if the Intel ones are getting good enough, I mean, I think, like I said, I do want to replace I don't have, other than this, the Surface Go. That's my only little tablet, and I think I would get a new one now because I've had that since the original. That's the original one that I've got. I would have got the ARM-based one, and perhaps if Microsoft think the Intel one is the better bet, then that's where I should get. But I just wanted one for the sake of it, almost.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. I mean I'm running a Surface laptop. Is it Mini or the no, not Mini, the lowest
laptop Go.
So
that is
Surface
a great
laptop
device.
Go.
Yeah.
You see, I'm going to disagree because I've been using one now for about 2 months as my daily driver. It is a great machine in terms of the screen is wonderful. The hardware feels great. The battery is catastrophically bad. I mean,
I've not really seen it, but then I don't. It's my wife's device.
I mean, it's supposed to run for 13 hours or so. That they say I'm getting 4 or 5 hours of just normal productivity use. I'm not even doing. I'm basically using the browser. I'm using Office apps and things. And while the machine itself is absolutely super, but even with the screen turned down, I'm getting not many hours use out of it. And I've been told by my company's IT team that that's actually quite normal. That's what they're seeing. And their advice is to use an external battery, because occasionally I do need it to run for more than 4 or 5 hours on battery. And the advice is, well, you need a battery pack then, because it just doesn't last, which that for me is what the ARM devices really addressed, was battery life. So I'm disappointed that Microsoft aren't going to keep pushing forward with it. Well, they don't seem to be pushing forward with ARM on these devices, because that getting that all day battery life is so important. And it's, again, I'm no big fan of the kind of Apple do seem to achieve that with their M-based Macs, that they do seem to last a lot longer and run a lot cooler. Whereas there's just not the same thing happening with certainly the Surface Laptop Go that I'm using.
Yeah, I was going to say, I suppose the use case. Well, my wife's got the laptop Go. She loves it, but then she uses it for a couple of hours here, an hour there on the, a bit of
which
in
is
the
fine.
Kitchen. Yeah, and then you don't really notice it that way.
I mean, it's such a shame because the keyboard is great. The screen is gorgeous. The screen is actually superb. But it's just, if you try and use it for more than 4 or 5 hours, I've found the battery just dies so fast, and which is disappointing, because it does have this, hours it should last in the specification, and it's just not getting anywhere near that for me. And as I said, I assumed it was a fault, and I've been told no, they're all like that. At least the ones in my company have ever quite. It seems to all be that way, which I think is a real shame.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. Yeah, because that's really what I wanted to go for as well. An updated Go is for that long battery life. I used to be able to, when I first got the Surface Go, I could really take that to meetings and didn't need to take the charger really. But so yeah, I was kind of expecting the same thing from the laptop Go. The Surface Laptop Studio is actually pretty good, but it's a different, entirely different beast of a device, isn't it? Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And again, the laptop Go is quite light as well. It feels really well built. It's just the battery's bad. But speaking of new hardware, tell us about your Solina String Ensemble.
Oh yes. So
very excited about this.
I mentioned last week. Yeah. So I don't know if I can pull the wires out. So here is the Solina String Ensemble.
Oh, the lights are on too. Oh, look at this.
Yes,
lights are on. Cables plugged in.
Yes, it's all plugged in. So this is the Behringer String Ensemble, and it is a recreation, not an emulation or a virtual. There's no ARM, Raspberry Pi in this. This is discrete circuitry that Behringer built in of the 1970s. I think it's 74 Solina String Ensemble, which is a big old heavy keyboard, but the sound is instantly recognizable for any synth tracks. Jean-Michel Jarre, Oxygen, that type of thing, Tangerine Dream, Joy Division, you know, those kind of synthy string sounds that they had. Air, lots of other groups have used these, and yeah, this is and it's an absolute marvelous machine. I really enjoyed playing with it. It's very creative. So it effectively uses. It came from an eminent organ in the 70s. So it uses organ technology, which is individual transistors for each note. So it's actually fully polyphonic. It's 49-note polyphonic. Each note on the keyboard can be played at once. Normal synths, like an analog synth, would have 4 oscillators, say, that you play 4 at once. But this is basically an organ type technology. But they use a bucket brigade modulator, sort of chorus effect, and that gives it that really eerie 70s sound. And you'll hear it on War of the Worlds. You hear it all over 70s stuff, disco stuff. And I can't play the audio through it, but the listeners will be able to hear it. So I've recorded a video with it with an unboxing, but you can hear that sound, and I've demonstrated it off. And it's also got an input as well, so you can pass things through and use the modulator and the phaser. So it's got a good old phaser, so you can have that phaser effect as well. But it's a really lovely sound, and it's got a left-hand section for the bass for your left-handed, and it's got the right-handed, which is viola, violin, trumpet, and horn. Of course, they sound, especially the trumpet and the horn, sound nothing like a trumpet or a horn. But that was the charm of those 70s instruments. They didn't sound like what they were manufactured to do, but they had their own unique sound. So, but like I said, this is a recreation. It was £280 available from Behringer. So if you wanted to buy a real Solina String Ensemble off eBay or whatever, you're probably talking about $4 or $5 grand, because they're quite valuable now. They're obviously 45-year-old technology as well, so you things can go wrong with them. So this is a brand new thing, and it is really nice, and it's such an instant recognizable sound. When you hear it, if you listen to any 70s or 80s music, you'll recognize it straight away. But it's a really playable instrument as well. So so very excited with that. So all the tracks that I'm going to be working on at the moment sound a bit like a late 70s. I've got a late 70s string sound on, because it's instantly playable. So it's the first Behringer piece of kit I've got. They've got some interesting business practices, and probably not, if you're not aware of them, but I think they're a German company that manufacture in China. And some things like this, they're taking obsolete technology and bringing it back by reverse engineering. Some things are slightly more dubious. They recreated some Roland drum machines from the 80s, which obviously Roland still exist, but Roland have chosen not to make them. So like the TR-808, 909, the TB-303 bass, all that late 80s, early 90s house music style. In fact, still now you can hear the 909 everywhere. They've recreated those. You can buy them, and if you want to buy an original 909, you might be talking a few grand, whereas their recreations are a couple £100 using the discrete technology as well. So not virtual machines, but they now make a whole range of synths. But some, like they make a Korg mono poly. Well, Korg still exist, but Korg don't manufacture it. There's some stuff they're cloning, reverse engineering effectively, but in this case it's great because it's bringing a device that you couldn't obtain easily to the masses. Other times it's a bit dubious because they're recreating stuff that other manufacturers may be making. So it's one of those things where there is a line. I think sometimes they get very close or maybe cross the line, but for an enthusiast like me to be able to grab that, plug your keyboard in and be able to play it, it's fantastic. So check out the video. It's on our YouTube channel, also on the website. You can hear the demo song playing in the background, which I used on Tangerine Dream Mellotron as well, just to give it a bit of authenticity. But you can hear the Solina in itself, and it's got quite a lot of views on the video, because I did find a lot of the demos that people were doing on YouTube, they were slapping it full of reverb and echo and all sorts. So it's actually really hard to hear the raw sound. So what I did on the video, I didn't have any processing on when I was demonstrating it, so you can hear what the device sounds like. Yeah, but I really like it. It's
Excellent.
hard now not to put it on every track. Yeah, so there is always that temptation when you get a new instrument. You just want to put it onto every track. So you've got to exercise a degree of taste, but of course, these things you wear off for a bit anyway. So, but yeah. Anyway, check out the video and have a listen to it. But it's a affordable technology. It's kind of USB firmware update, of course. Even a recreation of 1974 instrument still doesn't escape needing a firmware update when you buy it or when you first use it. So there's your little USB, you plug it in. It says you need a new version of the firmware. So what you do?
Exactly. I actually turned on my scanner for the first time in about a year yesterday, and the first thing they said was, "Oh, there's a firmware update." I thought, "You're a scanner. Why do you firmware update? You've got literally one job to do." So no, must do a firmware update first. Okay, fine, I'll do your update, and no different, but yeah.
Yeah,
that's the modern world.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. So have a look on that. And this was the first video that I've done of any new musical equipment since beginning the YouTube channel. So normally I've just been picking out stuff I've already had, but this is the first new thing I've got. So yeah. The problem is with these, they've got loads of these things, all between £200-300 or something like that. So it'd be very easy to rack up a load of these because they're not like buying vintage synths at a couple of grand. They're affordable, but easily to get overwhelmed with gear. You've got to be careful not to buy too much. Yeah, otherwise you never get the most.
You can never buy too much gear. You know that.
Yes, well, yeah, there is that, but what you don't do if you don't spend time with something, you don't learn it properly, and you never really master it. So I do like to get an instrument and master it and really know everything on it. But there's some things you can do, some things you can't. But this is pretty simple. It's got you play and it plays strings, and there's a few buttons, and that's about it. So yeah,
excellent.
Good fun. And I think that was all the new stuff I had. Have you got anything new? You want?
That's it for me. That's it for me.
Now next week I am lining up. Because I was actually interested talking to, we've done vintage synth collector, some vintage computer collectors. So I'm going to try and line up next week a vintage synth collector because I thought, it's the same thing with vintage computer collector. You're keeping these things alive, aren't you? As we talked about at the museums, it's not easy to keep these things alive, and sometimes they need keeping alive, don't they? Because they're historical items. So I'm going to be talking next week to someone that has some vintage synthesizers and sort of find out why they collect them and what you've got to do. Because just as with vintage computers, there's moving parts in them. There's chips that no longer exist. There's failing capacitors. Backup batteries are one of the nemesis of vintage synthesizers that I think we have it with computers as well, don't we? But leaking rechargeable batteries on circuit boards are not good. And so yeah, there's quite a lot goes into look after this stuff. So I think we'll do a little special on that next week. I've got a collector that or enthusiast. I think he didn't want to say he was a collector because he doesn't collect them to say collector. He plays them, but he has quite a few. And these things are expensive now. And not unlike some of the vintage computers we looked at, but yeah, some of these vintage synths are actually really expensive now. A few years ago, they were throwing them away, and now they're really expensive.
I guess it's because you just can't get that noise, can you?
Yeah, that's right. There's something about it, especially the analog, since there's something about those characters that are hard to make, and that's why the Behringer are doing well with selling these recreations, because they're using the original designs so that you can get that as well. But yeah. So we'll be talking about that next week, I think.
Brilliant. Look forward to it.
Excellent. Right. So where can we find you?
Mastodon and Blue Sky, and basically those two places. I'm not going to try to say them because it's just do a search for Richard Speed and you'll find me.
Yeah. I think do we call it X now? I still can't get my head around that.
Yeah, I'm going to steer clear of that one for a while. Although I think I'm most active on Mastodon and Blue Sky, because I think Threads. I don't know about you, but it seemed like a thing you looked at, thought, okay, interesting. That's a thing very easy to sign up to, and then move on elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's it exactly. Yeah, you've got changing habits is a lot harder than signing up.
Yeah, definitely. And again, with all these platforms, as I say again, the best place for all content is your own website, which is Ian.
Yes. Yeah, so thislifestyle.com, and you find all the links and everything on there, plus the YouTube channel and downloads and free sound packs and all sorts. So head over there. We'll see you back here next week, and Gary can join us then. I'll see you next week.
Cheerio.